Prison Experience, Chapter 5, Mental Evaluation and the Ozzy Syndrome. At this point, I'll have to explain about what I call the Ozzy Syndrome. If it only happened a few times, I would not mention it, but it became a thing that I, like it or not, had to deal with on a daily basis. It's funny how other people see me sometimes, and when it first started, I didn't even know it. I do play and study music. I also record music. I play a lot of different instruments and even sing. But I've not been on a major music tour that anyone would know about. I enjoy music and I like a variety of musical styles: classic, rock, heavy metal, blues, alternative, punk, new wave, and even techno. I know the bands I like and the ones I, for my reasons, don't. Anyway, when I first noticed the Ozzy Syndrome, it came from a local guy that I would visit once in a while and sort of became friends with after my wife, Sandy, passed away on Halloween 2011. One evening before leaving his driveway, after having a conversation, he said something like, "Okay, Oz." I didn't respond and drove back home. I didn't know what to make of it. We hadn't known each other for a long time, so I just went on and forgot about it. Then it happened again, this time in a jewelry store. I had a piece of jewelry and I wasn't sure about it, so I had taken it in for an examination. I had never met any of the people who worked there. The business was rather empty. While just looking around, I heard Ozzy coming from someone behind the jewelry counter. I took a quick look around, and the jewelry people started talking to me about the item I had brought in. I listened, thanked them for the info, and left the store. This got me sort of thinking about this Ozzy thing. I don't look like Ozzy, I thought. I'm not tattooed. I had let my hair grow long after Sandy had passed, but no way do I look like Ozzy. I've heard Ozzy's music on the radio before. No, he had a show on the telly a few times. In no way was I trying to look like him. I don't even own a Ozzy album. And what music I was playing and studying had nothing to do with Ozzy. It's not that I dislike Ozzy, but this started coming out of strangers and people I've never met before. Inmates at the Pike County Jail were calling me Ozzy. I didn't complain about it. Going around telling people not to call me Ozzy didn't seem right either. So while getting a mental evaluation down the state, it happened again. This time it started getting weird. I happened to be walking up and down the hallway outside my cell. Other inmates there for an evaluation were doing the same, when a small young guy struck up a conversation with me. I'm noticeably scarred on my chin after the car wreck. The younger, smaller guy starts telling me this story about some music performance he had seen involving Ozzy. At the end of his story, he starts asking me, "Is that where the bat scratched you when you bit its head off?" And he seemed real serious about it. So for a little while, I became Ozzy for him in a psych ward somewhere in the middle of Kentucky. I smiled a little and continued on to my daily routine, and this Ozzy syndrome continues all through my prison experience. I'm there to get a mental evaluation so that I can stand trial for a very serious charge. Not to be admired by fans, but it didn't hurt. Only about the daily routine of taking mental aptitude tests, puzzles and such that was required, and exercising and playing volleyball outside when possible. In the evening before bed, I could listen to the radio intercom in my cell. It was a mix station of hit songs. It would be the last time I get to hear music for some time. After talking to the doctors there and explaining to them that I plan on going to trial, the day came when I had to pack up and get ready for the trip back to the Pike County Jail. I would have rather stayed there longer, but wasn't my choice, so back to Pike County Jail I went. And upon arrival, I requested to go back to the hole, which I did. Days passed, and I was called for a meeting in front of the judge for the results of the examination. and the evaluation. The doctor had called it in, and I was deemed fit to stand trial. Afterwards, back to the hole I went and the usual routine of jail living. After time passed, I met with my attorney and we discussed going to trial. At some point, the mention of a plea deal came from my attorney. We discussed it. No way did I want one. I've got Joe, my son, to think about. I'm withered, and I have no help other than my aging parents, who have taken on the responsibility to see to his care and get him to school every day. My son's condition affects his ability to speak, and I've always been his interpreter for others. But that didn't matter to those who chose to push hard. The truth of what actually happened didn't matter to them either. Trial dates were set. I had a lot to consider. Going to trial with a capital murder charge isn't quite the same as going to trial charged with reckless homicide. The amount of time, if convicted, is different. There's a big difference. 20 to life isn't like 1 to 5, and I know that not everyone that's been in a car wreck gets charged with capital murder. In no way whatsoever was this car wreck intentional on my part. However, I do believe there was intent to get rear-ended by the driver of the car that was in front of me. That and some other factors were in play. No one seemed to give a damn about that either.